Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here with a continuation of my discussion of Rebirth, this time mostly through the Bat family books. As I mentioned before, I'm kind of taking it all in as a whole. I'm kind of going for the forest rather than just some individual trees. Rebirth for me is making a nice big tapestry so far. I'm sure eventually that'll break down and I'll have to inevitably start getting less of the Rebirth books because I'm getting so many of them now. But for the moment, I'm happy getting a heck of a lot of them. And one of the kind of interesting patterns that I think a number of people have pointed out is the writers that we expected to blow us out of the water in Rebirth haven't maybe done that so far. And then there's some other writers who have really impressed a lot of us who previously were not writers we were like terribly excited about. And a couple of those are included in the Rebirth set, the Batman set of the Rebirth books. One is Detective Comics. In fact, I really disliked the first issue of Rebirth Detective, this one, and I blamed it all on James Tynion, and I already expected kind of not to like it, and I just felt like it was very flat and on the nose and unoriginal, although it had this amazing art. So I dropped the book, and then I kept hearing everybody talk about how great it was and how it was really the best Batman book out there right now. And I finally caved, and I dug up a bunch of issues so that I could catch up. I think I missed just one issue, and it really didn't matter. I could have probably missed two issues and still kind of got the gist of everything. But despite what for me was kind of a weak beginning, Tynion is really clicking, and the art is really good in most of these issues, or most of the art is good in all of these issues. So he's created a great team book, a team of the Bat family, a Bat team, which, goes against my instincts to a certain extent. To me, all these Bat characters should be kind of psychologically hurt loners, not team players. But he's making it work and making the balance, and it's just too much fun to ignore. And, like in Action Comics where the action is kind of nonstop, the action here is pretty nonstop, occasional pauses for a little bit of psychological exploration. But the pace is excellent, and you just want to keep reading more and more. And and I'm becoming actually starting with some of the Batman and Robin Eternal stuff, becoming more and more of a Tim Drake fan, of a fan of Red Robin, and the development of Red Robin in here has been really nice, and it builds to kind of a climax. I won't say exactly why, but it builds to a climax in this issue in a very satisfying way, and I'm very curious how they're going to get out of the problem next issue. Hopefully it won't be some kind of cop-out. So far, other than a few sort of super convenient things like with Clayface, this series has done a good job, because in the past I have seen Tynion kind of do cop-outs and easy ways out of things. But anyway, this is a huge surprise for me, and there have been others, including in the Bat family. Let's see. Well, the biggest one, is it here? Has been, even more than Tynion, I avoid Scott Lobdell. But on Twitter, John DaCosta mentioned that it was his favorite of the Rebirth. And I thought, well, I usually like his taste in comics. I've got to check it out. So I did, and much to my shock, even the Rebirth issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws, which was totally about Red Hood, had nothing about any outlaws, but it was a really good Jason Todd story, and really made me want to read more. It was a good Batman story. It was a good Batman universe story. And so far in the official issue 1 of the new series, it's maintained that feel, and with pretty good art and everything. But it will be interesting. Everyone says the other shoe's going to drop with Lovedale, people I follow on Twitter or on YouTube. And it's only at this isn't a very big spoiler because it's on the cover. It's only on the last page that one of the other outlaws shows up. I'm actually quite intrigued by this character. I don't know much about Artemis as a comic book character, if anything. I must have encountered her somewhere, but I know very little about Artemis. She has kind of a outsized look that I kind of dig there. So I don't know what Scott Lobdell will do with her, but anyway, I'm on the Red Hood train for now until Lobdell really does screw it up the way people are saying he might. But it's looking very interesting. You know what I'm more nervous about is how they're going to fit Bizarro in with this. The last Bizarro series I read was fantastic, but it was like a Looney Tunes cartoon. And it was very cute and lovable. And so how that fits in with the grim, dark Red Hood and how you make me buy into the concept of Bizarro and everything, that's probably where things will get quite tricky with this one. So, well, I'll stick to the theme of the ones that, had an unexpected quality. So, another one, I wasn't expecting it to suck, but Tim Seeley is now solo on Nightwing. Nightwing, who is also Grayson. And on Grayson, he co-wrote it with Tom King. And I think after a while, everyone thought it was Tom King who was the secret sauce, the ingredient that made Grayson great. And while I find the writing on Nightwing to be a little bit on the less consistent side, sometimes the pace isn't perfect or whatever. There's a huge amount of good stuff going on here. And I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute, maybe Tim Seeley was a huge major ingredient in Nightwing. Doesn't hurt either. I'm starting to really dig one of the I think it's a twice a month, so I think we won't always be seeing Fernandez on here. Let's see. He's been on issue 1, 2, and 3. So I don't know if Fernandez can keep up the pace. I forget what his first name is, but by issue 2, I was really enjoying his art, and on issue 3, I was really loving it. But yeah, he gets a moody quality. The coloring is also really good. And then Tim Seeley really creates atmosphere too, and really creates character that is sticky, that makes you want to continue to find out more. And this arc is called Better Than Batman, and it's not that Nightwing is better than Batman, but this character Raptor is claiming he will be a better mentor for Dick Grayson than Batman was, because Batman didn't give him the full story or whatever, or the proper view of the universe. But there's also a lot of nice team up with Batgirl, and so yeah, Tim Seeley may be the secret sauce, and that may be why Batman, written by Tom King. This was the one this was the one Rebirth comic I was not gonna miss no matter what. I was so excited that Tom King was gonna be doing Batman, and as it turned out, David Finch, who I wasn't sure about, his artwork for Batman with Jordi Belair colors has been really on the spot for a nice urban, creepy superhero Batman type of story. But Tom King himself, has struggled, or it's not even like you're seeing him struggle. It's almost like you're seeing him not do very much. But there were some twists in the last issue here, issue number 5, which wraps up, I put in quotes, wraps up the arc, because it only wraps up a little bit. It wraps up, at least for now, what's up with Gotham, and gives us a sort of closure on that story, which leaves the window open for more Gotham Girl, I think. Yeah, I'm not even sure it's hard to even talk about this Tom King stuff in any depth. It doesn't stay in the memory that much. There were lots of cool scenes in this. So this issue number 5 kind of redeemed the arc. I think it was also kind of picking up in issue 4. I seem to remember there was stuff in issue 4 that I found more compelling. But also in issue 4 I found a sense of a lot of jumping around, and like there was, like, the story was being done in a rush. Like maybe it was in a rush to get to some plot points that are needed for some big crossover series rather than an organic story. And then this issue seemed to be made of kind of disparate parts. There was a really good opening sequence with Alfred dressed up as Batman and his inner monologue, and that was really good. And I love the way Finch drew Alfred in the costume. And yeah, I'm not even sure what I'm saying. But so one thing I'm wondering is maybe they made a huge mistake not having Seeley and King do Batman together. They're the ones who turned Grayson into a hit together. And maybe if they'd been doing Batman together, we would be seeing a lot different Batman. And maybe Tom King, who's a bit of a newcomer to comics, maybe he needs an ally to help him against the editorial, so to speak. I mean, it almost feels like he's a tool of editorial rather than this, creative powerhouse that we've seen on small books that both Marvel and DC let him kind of have his way with. But yeah, people have talked about how Batman's kind of in the background here, which is interesting because Batman's kind of in the background of Detective. And in Nightwing, he's a character they're talking about, but he's not on stage, of course. So that's funny that Gotham has maybe come into more focus, and the characters from Gotham have come into really good focus as characters, but Batman himself has receded a bit, which is the last thing I expected, with Batman as their huge best-selling comic, at least since the beginning of the New 52. Anyway, there's something odd going on there with Tom King's Batman. And Detective Comics, has become a team book. It's not really about Batman so much as the shadow of Batman over this team. And then we got Birds of Prey. So far we've just had the Rebirth issue and issue 1. There's been a lot of complaints about the art. I actually like the art quite a lot. And I like the colors and this artist's way of doing action. At times the faces are exaggerated for reaction, and I can see why people don't like it, but it doesn't seem to bother me. I am having trouble transitioning to the new Helena Bertinelli from the head of Spiral that I knew in Grayson, to her as just this kind of half-cocked, I'm out to kill the mob kind of person. Doesn't quite connect with the calm, cool, disciplined, in control person that we had in Grayson. But letting that go, she's an okay character. I'm enjoying Birds of Prey, but it's just not the what do I want to say? It's just not fully there. I'm not caring that much about the characters and their friendships and their relationships. But that might come with time because I don't feel like it's being done badly or anything. So anyway, this is one that if I have to choose something to drop from the Bat family, this probably would be the easiest one to drop at the moment. When I was thinking I would just try one issue because of the artist, and then I thought I would probably not continue with it, was Batgirl, which is being written by some Hope Larson, who I guess is well known for her graphic novels but hasn't done superhero comics before, and the artist Raphael Albuquerque, who did an utterly fantastic job with issue 1 in particular. I just love the art, and it had awesome colors that went really well with him. I think sometimes you'd see with Albuquerque a lot of dark colors being used, but his art really pops with all these light, fun colors that are being used in this book. Let me see where. I think he's the one who did the controversial cover that they pulled of the Joker and Batgirl, harking back to the Killing Joke. Who's the colorist? I feel the colorist really deserves credit here. The colorist is Dave McCaig. I feel like I've heard that name before, and I didn't associate these bright colors with him before, I don't think. So kudos to him for making that choice. It's hard for me to put my finger on what Hope Larson does because it's not like a perfect story. There's some stuff that, is contrived and everything, but she gives it a fresh feel and it feels honest. Kind of looking back on the Batgirl of Burnside, while I could see some of the appeal of it, particularly visual, it seemed a bit calculated, and this feels more honest. We have Batgirl going on a road trip through Asia, needing a break from all the stuff that happened to her in Burnside, which, doesn't really line up with Batgirl and Birds of Prey. It kind of fits with Batgirl's appearances in Nightwing anyway. The idea that, just an aside, the idea that Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon, have this great romance is a really weird one because they both have other separate romances in other comics. But then when needed, they're the great tragic romance that should be working out but isn't working out. I don't know if that's even referred to in here because I think she had another boyfriend in the Burnside book. Which I think they refer to. And then here she has a guy who she's starting to get the hots for, a friend of hers from back in high school, I think, or childhood. So the first issue was really good. The second issue is good, but it feels a bit more like an in-between issue. There's less exciting stuff going on. She's in an mixed martial arts fight, and it looks like we're being set up for something that's happening to her at the end of this story that maybe will make for a more exciting story in issue 3 and 4 and such. Well, we'll have to see. But everything develops nicely, and I have nothing bad to say about Batgirl number 2. Just didn't quite knock my socks off as much as Batgirl number 1. But I'm really excited to follow this series, put it on my pull list right away after reading issue number 1. And I can see reading it for quite a while to come. As always, I feel like Is there some other Bat book that I've forgotten to put in my pile here? Anyway, All-Star Batman. I was not going to pick this up, and I just on a whim picked it up because I was so tired of Scott Snyder's approach to Batman by the end of his previous Batman run in the New 52. But I gave in. There's all these extra pages here, so it's a value for the money. And I was curious how Declan Shalvey would draw Batman, and there's Declan Shalvey drawing Batman, which was not as exciting and dynamic as I expected. It was fine, but much to my surprise, here I much more enjoyed Batman by John Romita Jr., than I was expecting to, because I really did not like John Romita Jr.'s portrayal of Superman, and I've started to really dislike John Romita Jr.'s art, maybe around the time of Avengers versus X-Men, or a little before that. Prior to that, longer ago, I used to think of him as a really good go-to artist, going back a long ways. But anyway, for me, he's making kind of a comeback with his art here in All-Star Batman. It doesn't hurt that he has Dean White working with him, because Dean White is a fantastic colorist. Although Dean White worked with him on his Captain America, and I still really did not like that. Maybe the Captain America was more bothered by the characterization of Captain America at that time. So this struck me as a fun story with a fun little conceit of having to, get through the state or get through the county alive, or, without Two-Face being rescued. And Two-Face has somehow motivated everybody in the entire state to want to stop Batman from taking him across the state lines. So it has that kind of, road movie, adventure, action kind of thing going on. There's nothing, that I'm loving wildly here. So I kind of hope that in a way that it's like ideally it would be just like a 2-issue story. We'd get the rest of the run across the state next issue and a resolution, and then move on to something else. That would make this actually a really good story. As it gets dragged out, it'll be more questionable in my mind whether Scott Snyder can make that work. Maybe he can make it work. Maybe he can find a way to make it into a big, long epic, the way he usually likes to do. But I'm hoping it's less epic and more of a shorter, small story just leading to the next shorter, small story. That to me would be epic. The backup story by Declan Shalvey seems to have, it's just a different story as far as I can tell, have nothing to do with the front story, unlike the way they used to do backup stories in Snyder's Batman before. Like I said, I'm okay with Declan Shalvey's art, but it doesn't do anything special for me here. He seemed to do more interesting things, for instance, in Moon Knight, which is funny because Moon Knight was always viewed as the copycat of Batman over at Marvel, at least when it originally came out. There's some fun visuals here, though. The story so far is just like the beginning of some horrific Batman mystery that's like a horror story and a mystery at the same time. And the only kind of new thing is that it has his person who they're claiming is not a sidekick, and I'm now forgetting his name, because he's a character who I've never got the full story on. I don't know a lot about this guy. He was in We Are Robin, and now he's dressed in this yellow outfit with a bat on it, but they still haven't given him a name. They just keep talking about how he's something different. He's not a sidekick, he's a partner. But I don't know what that means. Let's hope Scott Snyder has something he wants to do with that. It might be that in this book, Scott Snyder is going to be in charge of that character's fate. I wish I could remember his name, since he doesn't have a superhero moniker. Damn. It'll come to me after I finish this video. Another thing, maybe I need to reread it. I read it quite a while ago now. The beginning of my learning to like John Romita again started in this Dark Knight Returns, The Last Crusade. This was very interesting. The colorist was listed also as the inker, and I think what that meant is they went directly from pencils, and the colorist maybe adjusted the pencils to make them look more ink-like. And that definitely seems, if I'm right, seems to add to kind of the flavor of the art. And it also had a very cool sequence with the Joker in the asylum and how he was behaving. And all in all, I enjoyed this quite a bit. I know other people were disappointed with this. but I feel like now I need to reread it and remind myself why I enjoyed it. It was a good Jason Todd story, and it seems to mostly stand on its own, but maybe will gain more context if one goes back and rereads all the other Dark Knight books. I don't know. So that's where I stand with the Batman books. I'm liking them all, but the one I thought I would like the most is the least big of a deal at the moment. People often talk about having faith in creators. If we have faith in Tom King, he's going to pull something really interesting out of it eventually. And that may be the case. I certainly think he's a super talented writer who has all kinds of interesting angles on things. He either hasn't found his angle on Batman yet, or he's hiding it, or editorial is interfering with him too much and he's not able to deal with that and make his vision of Batman come through. Just a mystery to us what that is all about, but or what's really going on there. So I hope I thought I was going to be back sooner with this Batman one and do some other sort of clusters of Rebirth books, but I hope to come back with a few more soon. So and then catch up with talking about all the good indies that I'm reading. Although, as I think I said before, I'm reading less indies now because I'm looking less for new indies as I focus on just having a ball reading Rebirth comics for the moment. Talk to y'all later.